welcome to Hellish, the only podcast that comes to you live from the waiting room in hell. I'm Daniel Whelan, and I am the underworld's receptionist. Every episode, I ask a newly condemned soul for their infernal playlist, the 5 tracks that we will use to torment them for all eternity. With me, as always, is Satan's T-boy and literal devil's advocate, Alex Gale. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Dan.
You have brought the tea in. That's good. Doing your job.
I have. It's lukewarm. Just slightly. You know when it's like a cup of tea that you've left 20 minutes as opposed to the 10 or 15 that you normally leave it.
That is not your only job, of course. Your job is also to bring in a newly damned individual for us to torture. So who have you got with us this week?
This week I have singer, songwriter and broadcaster Alistair James. Alistair is the host of the Welsh language breakfast show on Capital Radio, and he has also released 10 albums. And he's the writer of a song called Patagonia, which won the Welsh language song contest Cân Gymru in 2023. Though, of course, none of these achievements have saved him from an eternity in the hellish pit.
Croeso, Alistair, welcome.
Diolch yn fawr.
I trust you had an unpleasant journey into hell today.
Yes, I'm not going to say which transport company I used for fear of being sued, but yes, it was overcrowded and late.
In that case, I'm going to guess it has Wales in the title. I don't mind being sued at all. So, Cân Gymru, this is quite exciting. So, just for some of the listeners who maybe aren't based in Wales or aren't familiar with Welsh language music, can you tell us a little bit about what the contest is, first of all?
The contest, it's open to everybody. If you speak Welsh, I mean, it doesn't matter even if you're in Wales, but it's a songwriting competition more than it looks very X Factor-ish. In a way, if you've got the grand final and the telephone public vote and things, but it's not the singers or the performance that wins, it's the actual song itself. So it's the very strange sort of scenario where at the end of the night you win and you go up onto the stage and you get the trophy, and it's incredible, but then you walk off and someone else sings, which is great, because the state that I was in on winning, I don't think I was capable of singing or talking, really, as is evident in my acceptance speech.
So, as you mentioned, you weren't the singer of the winning song, even though you wrote it. So the singer is Dylan Morris, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Excellent. So it's a fiendishly catchy tune, so why don't we have a quick listen? This is Patagonia, sung by Dylan Morris, written by our guest, Alistair James. Patagonia.
I didn't realise, Alistair, Welsh isn't your first language.
It isn't, no. I was actually brought up in English. My dad was born in London, brought up in Bristol. And my mum's side of the family is Welsh, but obviously English was my first language. But then I met my wife, and she comes from an entirely Welsh family. And so I had to learn damn quickly.
But you grew up in Wales, so you had lessons at school, right?
That's right, yeah. I mean, I spoke Welsh to my grandparents up until about the age of 10, and then unfortunately my granddad died. So it was pretty much, it sort of stopped in a social, personal level there. And it was entirely English. All of my friends now, my social circles are still English, but my family now, I speak Welsh to my kids. Obviously, me and my wife speak Welsh, and I speak Welsh at work. And it is the best thing that ever happened to me was grasping the language.
Are you naturally good at languages? Because I mean, I speak a second language as well, but I don't have the confidence that This next week we're sending presents to each other at the office, and they say there's an option to write a rhyme with the present, a little, and it's in Swedish, and I speak Swedish every day to a reasonable degree, but I'm shitting myself about writing a rhyme in another language. I don't have the confidence to do that, and you've written a whole song in Welsh.
I mean, I say when I grasped the language, it wasn't that sudden. You know, when you think of the word grasp, you think of a very quick attack. No, it was a very gradual process. And if we're talking about hell, I think I've just turned up at the gates of hell with a sack full of my first and second albums, because they are absolutely... And I shudder now that I've developed, shall we say, linguistically and musically. Yeah, but I suppose it was all a learning curve, really. But it did take a while, yeah. Because there's a lot of intricacies in Welsh. There's the mutations and the masculine and the feminine and things like that, which I could never really understand. You know, for example, I'm looking at a radiator now, and is it a female radiator? Is it a masculine radiator? Now, someone would be able to say...
Can it be both, or is it always one or the other? Like, it's like always French, so
it's always one or the other. And as far as I know, I still can't grasp it. But somebody would be able to say, "Oh, well, it's feminine," and is it? Why? It just is.
It just that's the thing. There's a similar thing with Swedish, where all words have, you know, like in English, you would say a car, or you would say an hotel, strangely, or an apple. So it's an "an" or an "a" word. And they have a similar thing in Swedish where it's an "et" or an "n" word. And there's no rules. You just have to know them. But the rule I use is about 75% of them are "n" words. So I always say that first. And then you've got a 3 in 4 chance of being right.
Well, I mean, with a lot of it, it does come down to how it sounds. For example, an apple was a great example. Apple just doesn't sound right, you know. It's not, and I couldn't explain why it is an apple as opposed to a apple, other than it just sounds
just
right.
Is.
It just is.
Well, that kind of brings us back to Gymru, because many people who are listening to this might know that the Welsh word for Wales is Cymru, but in the name of the song contest, Song for Wales, it is Gymru. And I'm guessing that's the same principle, is it? That it just sounds right, that Cymru doesn't sound as good as Gymru.
Yeah, it's the poetic. It flows off the tongue. It is a beautiful, beautiful language. It's just very... It takes time to get it exactly right. And I'm a long, long way off getting it exactly right, believe you me.
I mean, you say that, but that is a little bit modest because you present a breakfast show. So for people who aren't in the UK, they might think the Capital Radio Breakfast Show is presented by Roman Kemp, which is true for every other Capital Radio station in the UK, apart from Capital Cymru. So you are the Welsh Roman Kemp. Are you not?
I'll take that title. Yeah, Roman's a legend. So yeah, absolutely, I would take that title. But yeah, I mean, fair play. This is not this podcast is not work related, so I don't have to pander to the powers that be. But no, I've got to say they've been so supportive of the Welsh language. They've carried this on. You know, there've been massive changes in the radio industry over the last few years, but Capital Global, they've stuck with the Welsh language and they've seen the importance of it, I hope, and they've kept us going, and they've kept a Welsh station going, and it's you know, it's reasonably popular. I don't know what to say.
So let me ask you then, if when you had won Gymru, I'm assuming that previously, when people have won the competition, that you, as the breakfast show on Capital, have played the winning record. Did you play your own record?
I did, because Dylan Morris is singing it. I have got to the final twice before, and I've sung my own songs, and there is a rule. And I remember my first interview, my first meeting with while I was on Heart back in the day, and one of the first things I said was, please don't let me play my own songs. Don't schedule any of my songs in my show, because the first few shows I did where I was just a stand-in, I was told, you do not deviate from the playlist. We've got a set load of tracks that we play. You do exactly as you're told. You play the playlist, you stick to the show plan, and you know, obviously bring in your own personality and flavor to the show, but where the rules are rules, you stick to them. And obviously being terrified, when my songs were popping up because they were on the playlist, I was playing them, and it was a very awkward link out of those songs going, well, that was me. And people must have just thought, what an ego. He's playing his own tracks. What's this guy? But it was just literally
taking liberties.
Yeah, I just don't want to deviate from what I've been told because I was obviously very eager to please in the early days.
How come you didn't sing this one?
Because I thought my time has been. I've had that experience. It was brilliant. I mean, the playing your own songs in the final, and I've done that twice now, and they still rank, those two appearances rank as my highlights of my career, verging on highlights of my life. It's so amazing. But I just thought, well, why not try it from the other side, be a composer darling, and just be the take a back seat. And do you know what, it was absolutely wonderful going into the studio and telling someone else what to do in a way, and in a very nice way, of course, but yeah, and being on the other side and advising someone and saying, oh well, why don't you try singing it this way. And luckily me and Dolan, although we didn't know each other before, have bonded and had a great, we're mates now, and had a great time working on the track together. And he did all right, didn't he?
He did.
He did a good job.
It is a very fun song, I must say. Like it sticks in the head. Like, I live in Wales, but I don't speak Welsh, so I don't really know entirely what the song is about. People who are listening might know, Patagonia, I know where that is. That's in Argentina. So, and they're probably wondering what that might have to do with a Welsh song. So can you tell us what your song is about? What is Patagonia about?
Well, Patagonia was about a group of Welsh people that decided, at the time, it was the reign of Queen Victoria, and the Welsh language was very much under threat. The Welsh Not was being enforced in schools in Wales, which, if you're not familiar with that, is basically if you were a child that spoke Welsh, the language of the home and the language you were brought up in, you were beaten.
It was it's like trying to get people to not be left-handed anymore. They'd hit you until you stopped.
Exactly, and it was being enforced, and there was it was massive poverty in the mines of South Wales, so it wasn't a very nice place to be at all. And the Argentinian government offered an area of land in Patagonia to the Welsh people that wanted to go there, where they could set up communities and live through the medium of Welsh with absolutely no threat whatsoever. And a lot of people took up that option, and the Welsh language is still there now in areas like Trevelyan and Portamadryn and places. You'll still see shops and signs, and it's not as prevalent anymore. It's not used every day, but there are still efforts to keep the language alive. They have Steddfods every year, and the Welsh speakers that are left have got a very strong community.
And the places they live have Welsh names, from what you just said. They sounded like Welsh names.
Absolutely, yeah. You got Portamadryn, obviously Portamadryn. Madryn's a Welsh name. Trevelyan. It is incredible, really, that it's still going, and the bravery of these guys. I mean, it is a fun song, but not taking away from the bravery, because I mean, Patagonia now would be like going to live on the moon. To these people who, many of them hadn't left their own villages, in their lives. So it was quite a task.
So is it a political song, your song, would you say?
I suppose it could be construed as a political song, because obviously if we were left alone as Welsh people to live our lives and speak Welsh without the threat of being beaten, then they wouldn't have had to do that. But it's more a positive song. In the Welsh national anthem, there's the line, O bydde'r hen iaith barhau, which means the Welsh language will live on. And that's very much, what it has done, thanks to people that were brave enough to take massive steps. And the other massive Welsh song at the moment, due to the football, is Yma o Hyd, which is like the second anthem. It's unofficial. It's by a singer called David Iwan. And that literally translates to "We're still here." Because I think that obviously the Welsh are very, very patriotic. And I think that's because of the hardships, the fights that have had to be won over the centuries, really, to still survive.
Is there an element that maybe all Welsh language music is in some way political? Just the act of making music in Welsh, certainly popular music in Welsh, is that just in itself a political act?
I think so, yeah, because it's a labour of love. Unfortunately, Welsh music and Welsh royalties, you're not going to make a living out of being a Welsh musician or a Welsh composer anymore. You used to be able to, but unfortunately there was a dispute with how much money was being paid to Welsh language musicians and composers about 10 years ago. And it basically cut the bottom out of the industry, and Welsh musicians sadly are struggling. And so you'll have people, because Welsh music is massively popular. I mean, if you look at some of the gigs over the summer in Eisteddfods and festivals like Tafwyl and things, you'll have Welsh bands playing to tens of thousands of people, massive, massive crowds. And then the next day, they'll be in a classroom teaching woodwork, or they'll be a driving instructor, or they'll be working in the family shop. You know, it's quite incredible. It's quite sad, but it's nice that it's still going. It's this fact that you're never going to make a living out of it hasn't deterred some incredible musicians on the scene at the minute from carrying on.
It always seems strange to me that we can have #1 singles that are in Korean and that somehow get airplay on Radio 1. There's a Welsh band I like called Adwaith, who I'm sure you're familiar with. And they've got like this banging tune called Lipstick Goch, which, but you don't heir it on like even on Six Music really. You don't.
It's strange. I was just thinking about Sigur Rós.
Oh, there you go.
Made Icelandic and a made-up language,
and they have
made a very good living and had a hit. So maybe it's just a matter of time.
Or just the music. I don't know. There doesn't seem to be a reason why the music can't break through like that with the right song. Unfortunately, Alistair, it's too late for you because now you're in hell. So I would go and tell people to go and support your song and download it and stream it, but you're in hell, so it's not going to make a difference.
It was a matter of time.
Sorry. So all that good you did by winning Gymru, all for nothing, because now we are going to torture you. But before we do that, you'll be waiting with us while our HR department, which takes up the whole 10 circle of hell, by the way, allocates you a job to do for the rest of your afterlife. And while you're here, you'll be taking us through your infernal playlist. Before we do, we were wondering, just for our records, the Dark Lord has asked me to ask you this. What is the worst job that you have ever done? Just so we've got something to compare it to, and we're trying to allocate you something that you're really going to hate.
The worst job I've ever done. You see, I've always been in music, so I think was being a roadie. Now, I've got to say this because if I hadn't done that, it was the first step on a very long ladder. But my uncle was a singer in pubs and clubs. And I used to go out for £10 a show I'd go to his house, and it was back in the day where technology hadn't reached PA systems, and the speakers were the size of me, and they weighed the same as an articulated lorry. And I used to have to go there, and for that £10, he didn't lift a suitcase. He didn't lift a wire. So every Friday, Saturday, sometimes during the week, I'd go and I'd load up the car, all these boxes. Then we'd drive to somewhere like Wrexham or to Pwllheli or somewhere hours away, the middle of nowhere. And he'd sit in the car, I'd go and set everything up, and then he'd go and sing. But I was so shy at the time. I was about 16, 15. I was so shy. I would never sit in the pub. I would go and sit out in the car, and he used to gig all year round. So it would be like -2, and I'd be sat in the car. I'd pack a hot water bottle and a flask. It was pre-mobile phones, so I wasn't on Facebook. I was just sat there looking at the window and questioning my life choices.
Well, that is certainly one of the bleakest jobs we have had yet.
I just sat in a Welsh pub car park in the cold.
And then he'd drive all the way home. It'd be like 1:30, 2 in the morning getting home, I'd have slept half the way back, and then I'd have to start.
You're going to have to unload
all of these boxes then back into his garage.
It's got to be done that evening. Someone might nick it.
But it's like in the snow and in the rain. Okay. Yeah, that sounds like a pretty hellish job. So we'll try and allocate you something similar.
Well, it would be quite similar, actually, because the small amount of time I did spend in the pub setting up, it was pre-smoking ban as well, so there was a lot of smoke.
So that leads us nicely on to the first track of your torment, a song you are now embarrassed to own, or one that you used to like but now makes you cringe.
Right, well, my first choice is Jason Donovan, Too Many Broken Hearts.
Okay, well, I've got some facts about Too Many Broken Hearts by Jason Donovan, released 1989 and written by Stock Aitken and Waterman. It's from the album, Jason Donovan's album 10 Good Reasons. It's reached #1 in the UK. Australia only reached #7. Pete Waterman claims to have written this song on the toilet in 10 minutes. But that's denied by Mike Stock, who's the principal writer.
Thanks, Alex. So, Alistair, Too Many Broken Hearts. Why do you hate this so much?
Well, before we go any further, I've looked at my list of songs, and I've got to say, for fear of being sued, I love all of them. But there's always this context of, well, bar one.
This song is it's upbeat, you know. Stock Aitken and Waterman are difficult to dislike. Yes, if you're a cultured musician, a fan of classical music, complex arrangements, deep lyrics, they're easy to dislike. But they're very upbeat. They're simple. You know, they got good melodies.
Everything they did was it was catchy. It was well produced. It was punchy. The sound was slick. I think it's a nostalgia thing. It's like, if I could compare it to like fig rolls and mince pies, I don't necessarily like them, but I eat them because they remind me of like being a kid and it just brings it all back. Being sat with a Walkman on holiday in Cyprus with my parents, listening to this song because it was massive at the time. And, you know, I'm someone who loves James Taylor, Bob Dylan. You know, I shed a tear. I say I shed a tear. I was devastated last week at the death of Shane MacGowan because the man's a poet and his music's so good. But at the same time, this weekend, I'm going to the Capital FM Summertime Ball, and I'm absolutely chuffed that S Club are playing, you know. So I think I've got such a wide taste in music, and I do really like Too Many Broken Hearts, but it's never one that if I had the lads in the car on the way, I'd go, hey, listen to this, guys. You know,
you got a banger for you.
Muso friends, you know, the ones musicians that wear like silk scarves and things, you know, oh, listen to the nuances on this one. Too many broken hearts in the world. There's too many dreams can be broken into. I mean, we need to write that down. Really, it is, isn't it?
Get that in a song.
So I have a theory about Stock Aitken and Waterman, and that is that when you listen to their songs now, they are so much of their time. Like the production sounds like 1989, but if you listen to like say Blue Monday by New Order, 1983, it sounds like 1983, but it also is still really good and crisp and clear. It still can move people now. Even, you know, you play it on a dance floor and people will dance to it. And then if you look at things from like say 1993, like I was listening to Pray by Take That. It was on in the supermarket earlier, and I thought this doesn't sound dated in the way that those Stock Aitken and Waterman records do. They sound like 1989, but the thing about them is that they all have like amazing choruses. They all are like brilliant pop songs. I would just argue that they weren't produced to last in the way that records that were a little bit earlier than them and a little bit later than them were. Because it like there's a great I can't believe I'm about to say this. They did a great one with Cliff Richard.
What was that?
It's called I Just Don't Have the Heart, I think it is. It's got a great chorus. It really works, but it just really sounds like
Mid to late
1989.
80s.
Yeah. Like
I watched the video this afternoon.
Bad. Oh yeah.
It's quite filmic. I mean, the first thing that struck me about the video for it was how young Jason Donovan looked.
The other thing about the video is that he's playing an electric guitar that isn't plugged in.
Yes.
He is.
He's walking on the mountains with this electric guitar, not an amplifier or a power source inside. That annoys me.
Because he also, as he walks, he plays chords to begin with, and then he does a bit of finger work, sort of, but it doesn't seem to relate to the guitar on the song. But then there's one point where he sat on the porch of his cabin, which I guess is like an Australian outback cabin or whatever, where he watches the pretty girl go by on a tractor, and he's sitting there playing it with his foot up on an amplifier. But he looks at one point, he's sitting looking, singing to the camera, Too Many Broken Hearts, blah blah blah, and then he sort of looks above the camera as if he's looking at a friend or a director or the producer, and just looks at them and goes, "What am I? This is not," and then looks back down again.
I always got the feeling with Jason Donovan that I again, if I'm wrong, I don't want to get done for slander, but I don't think he played. He has actually got a really good voice. You know, he was obviously drama with his acting Neighbours and things. But the West End, he's played so many roles.
You can't hide on a West End stage, can you?
So he's got that, but I don't think he played the guitar. I think that was a kind of afterthought. Like, do you know what? You'd look really good strumming a guitar. Yeah. Just play it for this. Put your fingers anywhere. And he's done a concert. I'm not suggesting that I may have watched the concert, the Jason Donovan Live in Dublin concert at all. However,
Did you have it on video?
I may have received it as a Christmas present circa 1991. And thanks, Mum. Thanks, Dad. But he does like an acoustic version of the Rhythm of the Rain, which again sounds great. But he's like playing C, C, G, G, C, C. And it's just sort of, okay, I think he's kind of been taught this more than, you know, he's a natural musician or guitarist.
You're suggesting Jason Donovan isn't sitting up late at night in his hotel room, you know, strumming on the acoustic, coming up with these classics?
I don't think so. I don't think any guitars were used in the making of any Stock Aitken Waterman songs at all. But
well, funnily enough, that this was the first one. This was the first one that had a guitar on it. So it opens with a guitar lick, and it is the first Stock Aitken and Waterman track with a guitar.
That doesn't start with the. One thing that did bug me about this song, and it's something that actually bugs me about some of the other songs we're going to hear, is it fades at the end. It just fades. I think that's a cop-out. I don't know why any song that just gets to the end and fades to silence.
Yeah, I think the fade-outs are a thing of the past now, aren't they?
Yeah.
You don't hear them anymore, do you?
No.
Well, this is something you might appreciate, Alistair, because the idea with a fade used to be to make it easier for the DJ, so that when the record faded out, you would come in and talk. So now you have to do that fading yourself. So surely,
yes.
Surely it would be better to have it built in.
There is an industry term. It's called fader wanking.
Oh, really?
You're bouncing the fader up and down while you're talking. And I tend, not to do that, because a lot of the songs on Capital do have very nice big endings. Bang.
Good. Okay, so that is your first choice. We're going to go to your second one now, track 2 on your Infernal playlist. I would like a song that is universally adored that you cannot stand.
Now, this song, I think, is the one. I used to like it, but it's got so old now that I really don't like it at all. And it's Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond. Sweet Caroline, good times never seem so good. I described Too Many Broken Hearts as like the fig roll mince pies type thing, where you're not really, it's not your favorite taste in the world, but you know, it brings back memories. It's nostalgic. This, as a gigging singer, is like the fire extinguisher of songs. You don't want to use it, but it's very handy to have.
Oh, so you play this yourself when you're doing gigs?
Do, and it's literally it's so popular that if a gig is going down the toilet, or you've got one of those crowds, and you're thinking, "What am I right?" Sweet Caroline, it, and then they're all up, and it's
getting back on track.
Yeah, but I hate it, and I just associate, and like it's good. It's a great song. For the first kind of few years of it, I really liked it. But then it's kind of got so popular, and it's associated with lads on a night out, beer swilling, you know, and football fans. And, you know, I love football, but yeah.
Well, this
is so good.
Well, it has become associated with the England football team, particularly recently, hasn't it?
It has. I missed that a bit. Because again, not being in England, you heard it at the end of a match, and then they went to the studio. But it was a culture. It was a phenomenon, wasn't it?
So when I am not receptioning in hell, I sometimes DJ weddings and parties and things, and it's getting to the point with Sweet Caroline where if you have a crowd that speaks Welsh. It's touch and go whether Sweet Caroline.
Oh, this could set a riot off.
Yeah, well, it doesn't set a riot off, but like a portion of the crowd will sit down, like when they hear it, because it's
Like
become
a
so
protest.
associated with England.
But it's like an American thing as well. I think it's on the Seth MacFarlane film Ted or Ted 2.
About the teddy bear.
That's it, about the talking teddy bear. And forgive me, I'll try and be quick with this. There's a scene where he's hiding in amongst other teddy bears from the bad guy. And he's holding perfectly still so as he's not spotted amongst the real teddies. And the bad guy decides the way to find out who he is, for him to show himself, is to play Sweet Caroline, because he knows that come the chorus, it'll be impossible for him not to go, oh, and he does, and then he gets found. And so it's like I say, it's an American thing, it's an international thing now. It's just, I think it's overused, and it's not necessarily the England Football Association that irks me. It's just, again, as a gigging singer, I know that if I'm singing that, then the gig is going down the toilet, and it's the emergency break glass.
I see.
Song.
Well, I mean, I get it. I do get why people like it. I don't understand why it's become a much bigger thing recently, and I find that weird. I don't know why that has happened.
I did enjoy Rod Stewart singing it outside Buckingham Palace. Would that have been the coronation? There was a concert, or would it have been the Queen? It wouldn't have been the Queen's death. They wouldn't have had Rod Stewart doing that for the funeral.
So it wasn't quite candle.
It wasn't like Candle in the Wind. It was Rod Stewart pissed, walking down a catwalk, singing Sweet Caroline to celebrate. No, I think it was the coronation.
I just think it's also, and I'm guilty of this, I think it's the sign of, this is going to be so controversial, lazy entertainer and a lazy, unimaginative crowd. I think if they sit down all night through great song after great song after great song and don't move, but then Sweet Caroline comes on, it's like, this is the best song in the world. It's like, come on, widen your horizons, open your minds.
As someone who works on commercial radio, I'm guessing that you probably play quite a lot of songs that you don't really get on with, because that's the nature of the job. I wondered how you deal with that, because you have to be enthusiastic about all of them, right? That's part of the job. It's kind of upbeat and happy and fun. That's the nature of the show. But as a musician and as someone who likes music, how does that make you feel when you have to do that kind of thing?
It's an awkward one, to be honest, because I feel, obviously, we've all got music that we love and our own personal taste. And, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I think it would be unauthentic if I was to sit here and say, yes, I love every single song I've ever played in however many 15 years of radio. But I think you've just got to trust the people who have made millions, basically. For example, if I don't like artist X or Y or Z, I'm not going to name them, but who am I to say, well, they're terrible? Because they're obviously not. They're just, I don't like listening to them, but somebody, including them, have made millions from it. So it's just lucky I wasn't in that production meeting and where I said, no, this is absolute dross. It's awful. Get it out of my ears, because they would have lost millions on my opinion or my expertise. So obviously there are certain songs that do rub me up the wrong way.
But you're not going to tell us what they are.
I'm not going to. I mean, I could mention things like Baby Shark. How much is that?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
Again.
But did you play that on Capital? Was that playlisted?
We did. That was not playlisted, no. But it's the kind of thing. If I was sat in an executive meeting as well, as I'd listen to this song. It's about a shark, but get this. It's a baby shark. Okay, how does it go? Baby shark. I'd have gone, no, let's not. Let's not and say we did. Yeah, okay.
Right.
But how much has that made? And that's why I'm probably a failing businessman, because
Fair enough. Okay, so Times are hard here, even in hell, and we have had to rent the 11th, 12th, and 13th circles out to an ad agency, which means we're going to take a break now so that you can listen to some of their latest masterpieces. If you'd rather not, then you can buy yourself a little salvation by subscribing to our Patreon at patreon.com/hellishpod, and you will instead hear who the artist Alistair would meet in hell is. For the rest of you, we'll be back in a bit.
Hello, everyone. Sorry to interrupt the episode. Well, I'm not sorry, really. I just wanted to let you know about a few ways you can keep us on the road to hell. The first is nice and cheap. Like, subscribe, follow, award us 5 stars, write a review, tell all your friends and enemies. We're at Hellish Pod on social media, apart from Instagram, where we are Hellish_pod. The more visible the podcast is, the more episodes we'll be able to make. The second is if you want to tip us, you can go to coffee.com/hellishpod to throw us a few coins, either just because you're nice or because you want to try bribing your way out of hell. That's coffee.com/hellishpod, ko-fi.com/hellishpod. We workshop that name ourselves in hell just to make it very awkward for all podcasters who are asking for tips. The last one is to subscribe to our Patreon. You'll get longer, ad-free episodes. You'll get access to our 2 pilots. Plus, there's a bunch of other bonus stuff for higher tiers, including the chance to make a cameo appearance on a future episode. That's at patreon.com/hellishpod. Now, back to Hellish. Welcome back to Hellish. We are into part 2 of Alistair James's Infernal playlist, and this is when things really start to get unpleasant. So, Alistair, what we need from you is a song that reminds you of a bad time in your life, maybe a breakup, maybe when you were stuck in a job you hated, maybe when you were roadieing, maybe it is just a time that you had a terrible accident on holiday and the holiday was ruined. As long as it brings back bad memories, that is the song we want you to pick. So what's it going to be?
I'm going to say Elton John, Nikita, which is a great song. Again, when I first spoke to you about this podcast, I thought I'm going to have to find loads of songs that I don't like. But you know what? I think these tracks are belters, a lot of them, except for, Sweet Caroline and things. But anyway...
Okay, so why does Elton John's Nikita bring back bad memories for you?
Because I think the thing that stood out to me was the whole breakup thing, the breakup song. And I never had a breakup because I basically found someone dumb enough to marry me, who liked me enough to want to spend a prolonged period of time in my company, and I stuck a ring on it. So I never had that breakup, but I had a lot of failed attempts at breakups. So, I'd meet girls and, I'd try and be nice, and maybe we'd go out for coffee or something, and then I'd have the inevitable kind of, I like you as a mate, you're a lovely guy, I'm sure you'll find someone sometime. All of these kind of things, thrown at me. And I thought, right, they're all on the same playbook. And at the time, I'd just passed my driving test, so I had this new freedom to spread my wings. And I had an old CD player in the car and a mix CD with about 10 tracks on that I'd made on the computer at home. And track 1 was Nikita. And it just happened that every time I was walking back from said cinema date or coffee or whatever, or someone's house where I'd been given the bombshell, I'd start the engine and Nikita would kick straight in. And it was just, and it's that association, but
it's
I think
quite a good tune
great
for that.
It's great. And but I like it. I don't know whether it was, intentional that I put that as track 1 on my mix CD, because there was a lot of cheese on there as well. And it wouldn't, if you think of that sort of movie scene, if in my life story, I'm walking back through Upper Bangor, the student area, in the rain, head down. I get to my car, I take a massive sigh, look longingly into the distance at another disappointment. I turn the engine and Bucks Fizz comes on, making your mind up. It just doesn't fit the mood.
It's not the same, no.
Status Quo rocking all over the world. I'd probably kick the stereo in. So you need something like that in those times.
Have you seen the film Magnolia, Paul Thomas Anderson?
I haven't.
There's a character in it played by William H. Macy called Quiz Kid Donnie Smith, who was a winner of a game show when he was a kid, and he was been famous all his life for winning this game show, but he has now fallen on hard times. And whenever he kind of gets involved in a kind of little crime plot in the film, but whenever he gets into a car, whichever car it is, it always plays Dreams by Gabrielle. Like, dreams can come true. So I like the idea that every car you got into just played Nikita for you.
It's on autoplay.
Rub it in.
There's a car in the video as well, actually. And interestingly enough, not that interestingly, but the video is directed by avant-garde filmmaker Ken Russell. Of The Devils.
The Devils, yeah. One of the things I find weird about the video is Elton is in this big red car taking photos of East German border guards, and no German border guards shoot him. I find I like
well, and also he drives back and forth several times. And I don't know what he's doing. And the strange thing is, every time he goes through, he has to show his British passport. So as he winds down the window of his soft top car, and he's sat behind the thing. But in the first time he goes through the border crossing, he passes his passport over to Nikita, the beautiful Russian or East German. I think she would be Russian, but working in the song.
But yeah.
But he hands over his passport to her. She opens it, looks at the picture on the passport, and it's a picture of Elton John wearing exactly the same outfit he's wearing in the car. So he's wearing like this red sort of straw boater hat and red jacket, and that's him in the passport. Did you just get this done? They're not going to believe it's me.
So many
the exact outfit.
Pardon the pun, but there's so many red flags. Is the B-side Elton in the gulag? Elton in the
Elton gets his
intrusive cavity search.
Gets his kneecaps broken by aggressive East German secret police.
But also, like, you're not allowed to wear a hat in your passport photo. So,
very true, but maybe it was different in the mid-'80s. I don't know. There was a period when they said you have to smile in your passport, you have to be slightly side on. There was perhaps a trend.
Are you sure it's a hat? Because that was around the time.
It could be a hairpiece.
It's a very elaborate wig, maybe.
A hairpiece.
Okay, so Nikita is the track that reminds you of a bad time in your life. Could you tell us the name of a track that you hate by an artist you love, please?
Now, I mean, love is an understatement. I worship this guy to an unhealthy degree. I mean, a man crush, big time, if I'm allowed one. And it's okay because he's about 80, but it's James Taylor.
Oh, okay.
I think he's an absolute god among men.
So how did you get into James Taylor?
Well, my dad is a massive influence on me musically, and he's got the most impeccable taste in music, and I'm so glad that it was passed on. I mean, the difference is now with Spotify and everything in the car, when I pick the kids up from school, they say, "Dad, let me hear this. Dad, let me hear that." And I just cave because I want a quiet life, and they listen to the music that they like, which is dross.
Right.
But when I was a kid, it was just
you listen to whatever whatever tape was in the car.
Exactly. So I was brought up on the Pogues, I was brought up on Bob Dylan, I was brought up on Dire Straits, and like I say, James Taylor. And he's the one that really stands out. It's very difficult to choose, really, but I've been to see him live many times, and he's got such a beautiful manner about him. Between his songs, he just sits there in like the arena in Manchester with like 15,000 people sat there watching him, and he's just chatting like he's in his front room. And when he goes for his break, he says, "Okay, ladies and gents, I'm just going to go off for a few minutes now, go to the toilet, go to the bar. He comes straight back out and he sits on the edge of the stage and he chats to his fans and he signs things. And
wow. In the interval of the show?
In the interval of the show, and then after the show as well. So I've got a few selfies with him. And there's a song called Sweet Baby James, which is just beautiful, which he's taken the lyrics and turned them into a little pop-up book for kids, which I read and sing to my little boy Ellis. And I took that along with me to the last concert I went to, and he signed it to Ellis from James Taylor. So that's, a prized possession.
That is lovely.
Yeah, it was very tough, but I had to pick one, and it's a song called Steamroller Blues.
Well, I'm a steamroller, babe. I'm bound to roll all over you. Yes, I'm a steamroller now, babe. I'm bound to roll all over you.
Okay.
Why Steamroller Blues?
Because it's not a James Taylor song.
Okay.
It is, but he's taking the piss.
No, I think it's an interesting one. It doesn't sound like what you would imagine James Taylor to sound like. I do wonder about parody music in general, about songs that are taking... I do find that they tire quite quickly, and it's an unusual thing, I think, to put on an album, especially if you you're taking the piss as well. So I think he's taking the mick out of white blues bands, right? That's the idea.
It, yeah, and the general kind of easy blues of the 60s and nonsensical lyrics and people trying too hard to be bluesy. And it was actually covered by Elvis.
Yeah.
I don't think Elvis knew it was a piss take at the time.
Elvis doesn't strike me as somebody who would understand that.
No,
because I guess
I think Elvis was attracted by the line "a cement mixer, a churning urn of burning funk."
Yeah, but again, when James Taylor sings like "churning and burn," you can't make out what he's saying. A churning urn of burning funk. He's just,
but it is like
an absolute tongue in cheek.
It is funny, but it stops being funny after one go. Like that, I find that with comedy music.
He could have saved it for the parties, for
that was probably the intention. I don't think, but on the other hand, he has got a great sense of humor as well. He's so funny when he's live. So I don't know. I think he may have intended it just to have been a bit of a muck around in the studio, and someone said, "Wow, let's stick that down. Let's record that," And then it kind of got legs, and all of a sudden people wanted to hear it, and you're stuck in that rut. Then
he has Elvis singing his song. It's like that's pretty cool, right? I mean,
I know, but you've got to think he must be sat there thinking, of all of my songs, he could have done a beautiful version of Fire and Rain, with an orchestra or something like that. But no, alas, it was Steamroller Blues, and it still appears on like the greatest hits albums and things like that, which again, I don't know James Taylor, but I just feel he probably thinks, whoa, this joke's gone a bit far now.
Does he ever play it in concert when you
yeah
seen... Oh, he has played it in concert. Okay.
Yeah, he plays it in concert. And again, but it's the kind of thing, again, he may love it, he sees the funny side and whatever, but I think if someone was to say to me, give me a James Taylor song, that would be right at the bottom of the list. If I was to try and sell James Taylor to somebody and his music and say, you've got to listen to this artist, he's changed my life, then Steamroller Blues would not be on the list of songs I would give to them.
That is excellent. That is just what we need. We are very fond of you having that James Taylor song and no others.
Got a bad case of steamroller blues.
The deepest level of torture we have here in hell is the earworm. Those songs that burrow their way into your brain and refuse to come out no matter what you do. What is the song that once it gets in your head, you can never get it out again?
It's going to be Hanson. Mbop.
As if it could be anything else. I don't think you even need to say the name of the song when someone says it's going to be Hanson, do you?
It's going to be Hanson.
Well, that's the point I was going to make. You see, again, Hanson, one of my, back to my Nikita moment, trying my best to impress a girl who was mad on Hanson. I took her to a Hanson concert.
What did they play?
Well, that's the thing. People think, well, mbop, and that's it. But they've got so many great songs, and they are such talented musicians. They must be hating mbop by now, because everywhere they go, it's like, oh, mbop, one hit wonder.
As they walk around their palaces.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure they're not
diving into their swimming pool filled with dollar bills.
I do remember at the time, like in the 90s, I remember they had a second single. I remember them, like, and I imagine it probably did quite well in the charts, but I don't remember what it was. It hasn't got the staying power of mbop. No,
but I mean, as they've grown up, I mean, they must be in their 40s now, or touching. Yeah, they must be in their 40s.
Yeah, one of them, he was older than me. One of them was about my age, and one of them was much younger than me, I think, when it came out. So yeah,
they were
spread around 40 plus.
When it hit number one, they were 16, 14, and 11 in 1997. So that means the middle one, the lead singer, Taylor. Is 40 now. He's 40 now. I don't know if you heard this, but they recently re-recorded it with Busted. I don't know if you've heard this.
My wife made a noise, sort of, that as a married man one doesn't often hear, when she when she began to imagine Charlie from Busted and Taylor from Hanson on the same stage. It's like,
I'm sure she's safe, because they probably would, like, in recording studios halfway across the world, and they never actually met each other.
They never met. It wasn't the sexy dream she imagined. But...
No, so that is the call of Tracy from HR, which means that Alistair's work placement has come in. While I try and decipher her moanings, Alex, can you recap what is on Alistair's Infernal playlist for us?
I can indeed. The playlist is kicked off with Too Many Broken Hearts by Jason Donovan, Sweet Caroline by Neil Diamond to follow that, Nikita by Elton John, Steamroller Blues, a track by an artist that Alistair loves, but a song that he hates. And then finally, the earworm of Bop with its record scratch chorus to round things off. And I suppose we should ask Alistair if he were to have to pick just one song to be tortured with for all eternity, which of those would be the absolute worst one for you to listen to?
It would have to be Sweet Caroline. Because, like I said, in my defence, I really like the other artists. I really like the other songs. And again, Hanson, Penny and Me, check it out. Great songs, great musicianship. But unfortunately, all they're going to be remembered for is mbop.
We will play you out with Sweet Caroline. It turns out you have been allocated work as a roadie in hell.
The Devil's Roadies does sound like a band, doesn't it?
It sounds like a good gig.
Metal band.
Yeah, but unfortunately they're not a metal band. They're a boy band. They're a boy band who do Daniel O'Donnell covers. So sorry about that. So now all that remains for us is to issue you with your work iPod loaded with your least favourite and most painful songs, and to send you to Dr. Phlegathon to have it surgically attached without anaesthetic. But before you go, is there anything you would like us to tell the listeners about? Anything you'd like to plug?
Do you know what? I'm going to plug this show of this podcast, because it's a great concept and I've really, really enjoyed it. So thanks very much indeed for the invite. And do you know what? I think if hell is this pleasant, then I think I'm comfortable with my destination, because I mean it's an inevitability.
You got to remember, Alistair, this is the waiting room.
This is the nice bit.
It's designed to be pleasant. It's going to get much worse.
Much worse. So Alistair James, thank you, diolch yn fawr, and now go to hell.
Croeso tad.
Hellish was written and presented by me, Daniel Whelan, and Satan's T-Boy, Alex Gale. You can email us reception@hellishpod.com, support the show on patreon.com/hellishpod, and find us on social media @hellishpod. You can also listen to all Alistair's choices, plus our ongoing Ultimate Infernal playlist, bringing together all the choices of all our guests at Hellishpod on Spotify. Until next time that you darken our doors, damn you all to hell.